So our last speaker before lunch is Dr. Dodoo Arhin from the Department of Materials Science and Engineering in Ghana, and he's past director of the Institute for Applied Science and Technology. This is a very topical subject. You may be aware that the University of Cambridge is having a detailed debate about fossil fuels and renewable energy. And so, David, you're right on target in terms of subject matter with your photovoltaic cells.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to congratulate the Cambridge Africa program, and especially Caprix, which I happen to be the first fellow to arrive in Cambridge on the Caprix program, and happen to also work with the Cambridge Graphene Center. So what I'm going to talk to you about is just briefly my Cambridge experience and how it has impacted on myself, my department, and some general outlook on science. Just to let you know where I'm coming from, those who know and those who don't, this is Ghana, and it's a beautiful place that you might want to visit. You can do a couple of visits there. You can sit on the crocodile, and you want to have that experience. This is my university, University of Ghana. We have about 40,000 students, founded in 1948, which is pretty younger than, of course, here. And we have the college system making up about 5 colleges. And I belong to the College of Basic and Applied Sciences. So my department, Department of Material Science and Engineering, was established in 2004, which means it's also very, very young in terms of University of Ghana. And what we do undergraduate training with thematic areas in ceramics, metallurgy, and polymers. We recently started our graduate program that is 2014 after my Caprix experience. And we do teams in energy, materials for health, and then structural materials. So basically, this is an opportunity for those who might want to come to Ghana. Next year, I'm hosting a bigger conference in Ghana, so you can come to the Pan-African Crystallography Conference. So to my work, what we did here, the main idea was to facilitate some level of training in graphene and some experimental techniques that I'm going to learn, and then also develop potential collaborations and then dissemination of this. This was one of the reasons for establishing Caprix, to be able to have this partnership coming together. Just a brief on what graphene is about. Graphene can be taken from graphite, simply from pencil that we have, and then you can take different sheets. So it's typically thinking about it as your book, which is your graphite, and then the various sheets that are in. And it has interesting properties, and some of the properties that include high transparency, and it has some conductivity. And because of that, you find several applications. You can find applications in polymers, in touch screens. These days, you have Androids. And you can find applications also in solar energy. So basically, some of the applications include solar cells, biosensors, and energy storage, of which the solar cells and then energy storage is of particular interest to us. So we can apply this material in solar cells devices as transparent conductive windows for active material, also channel for charge transport, and also as a catalyst. And it also finds applications in organic solar cells, where we still use all these. And theoretically, we found that graphene can have about more than 12% using graphene as an active material in your solar cell application. What I did was basically to look at the dye-sensitized solar cell, which is mimicking photosynthesis and taking energy from the sun and trying them with local plant extracts from Ghana. So the idea was to use this material graphene and incorporating titanium dioxide and making a solar cell. One particular reason for choosing our graphene was trying to make some replacement with platinum, which is a precious component that makes the cost usually go up. Graphene, in basic terms, can be produced in terms of large sheets when you want to use it for industrial applications. Basically, we looked at two different methods. That is by chemical vapor deposition technique, or what we call the liquid phase exfoliation. And this liquid phase exfoliation is what we produce our ink in from. So basically, when you produce an ink, you want to look at the density, you want to look at the viscosity, you want to look at some few properties. So what we do is to have our graphite. We add, we put it in solution, which could be an organic solvent. We could also use water and then add a surfactant, and we ultrasonicate, and then we can get our component, which is up here, being used as our ink. So we go through these different iterations, and then we come out with our ink, which can be used in an inkjet printer. This is a typical printer technology that I got when I was here in the Cambridge Graphene Center. So what we do is to look at the technology of the cartridge, and you have to have particles, which are flakes that are less than 1 micron, so that they don't clog your nozzle, and then you can do your printing. So basically, we are able to also see how the inks flow, and then see if you have a stable ink so that you don't blot the substrate that you are printing on. This is a typical one that we did, so we could produce our ink and then put it in our cartridge, and then we did some couple of printing works that we had here. So you can print on different substrates, from flexible, from glass, from all different ones, and we can do electronics also with this. So what we did was also to print on glass substrates, which we tend to put in our application for our dye-sensitized solar cell. Not to bore you much, this is just a simple procedure that we go through. We have a substrate that is heated, and then we have a dye, typically the dye that I brought from Ghana. We put it in, and then we coat that surface to be able to absorb the light. We make drills behind. We'll be able to put in, either we put our graphene or we put platinum, and then we place them together, and this is filled with an electrolyte. And then we go on to do our testing, and this is the testing that we did in our center in West Cambridge. So these are typical materials that we use. These are common to Ghana. We have hibiscus. We have the hibiscus sabderifer that is typically a drink, actually. You can use it for tea, and then the pride of Barbados as well. There is a paper that already came out, which we said it achieved the aim of Caprex to be able to have at least the collaboration, and then to also generate good quality papers with our partners. So what is my Cambridge experience, and then how has that impacted on my personal and professional development, and then also on University of Ghana student training? Here, this is our experience in Cambridge. So what goes on here, we came in, and we also had part of it getting around. I had my bike, which is a popular one that you always find on the website. And then, of course, I did not just do those solar cell applications. I did some couple of painting on here. I went across the site. And there were social gatherings, interesting times. So it's not just sitting in engineering. And we also made a couple of presentations. We did talks to the Cambridge community. Then we also did talks in University of Ghana. This is where I worked, and then this was quite interesting for me, coming from Ghana to work in Cambridge, to have access to high-quality facilities. I worked in the clean room, and which I don't have in Ghana. It gave me lots of experience to work with the team here. This is me working in the clean room and doing my work here. And then we have all these experimental facilities that were initially not available to me there. We also went further to seek other collaborations. Went on to Sweden in Uppsala, and Professor Anders is one of the top people in dye-sensitized solar cells, who was a postdoc to actual Professor Gratzel. So this was an experience for us to work closely with him. Beyond that, there were several presentations that we have done as part of my work in Cambridge. So these were also presentations that I did in Italy, and then I did a couple of them in France as well. What impact have I gotten from the Caprix experience? When I came to Cambridge, I was a lecturer and a Caprix fellow in 2012. After my experience, on my return, I became the head of department. I was promoted to senior lecturer and became the head of department. Then also have experience with a Carnegie-sponsored program that is a regional initiative in science education, which has a branch called African Materials Science and Engineering Network, which I am the coordinator. In 2016, I became the acting director of the Institute of Applied Science and Technology, and now a fellow of the Africa Science Leadership Program, which I think has a lot to do with my Caprix experience. Whilst I was here, I got the opportunity to benefit also from the Alborada project. To let you know, when I came, our department was still very young, and we were now going to set up our postgraduate program. And this was very helpful to us. This is me packing a couple of equipment that I shipped to Ghana to help in our laboratory. And initially, that was the lab. And we have a couple of equipment that came in, and we are proud to say that Dr. Jennifer Barnes was in Ghana with James and then David to help open this, and it's benefiting our students. So this is my research group that I developed after my Caprix experience. So we have the hybrid and energy material research group, and we do a couple of things from nanostructured materials to carbon technology, and then we've gone further to have a group, which I didn't have initially. I have now master students, and I also have 4 PhD students who are learning under me, and I've expanded my collaborations beyond Cambridge. And other colleagues have benefited from our experience based on what we went to share in Ghana after my Caprix experience. There was a forum that people came in to listen to, and then it has also impacted on my colleagues who are here today. So Dr. Abuyaya has benefited, and then Nyangsin and then Ebenezer Anand, who happen to be in the audience. So going further, we are going to establish a center of excellence in energy, which is in partnership with colleagues from Cambridge. And then there are hubs that are going to be in Ghana, and Pakistan, India, and Tanzania, tackling the critical energy problem. And then we hope that by the end of the year, we hope this to happen. So briefly, in summary, the fellowship has really helped my research and professional development, and then also has also improved the academic and then mentorship that we have given to our students, and then also colleagues and younger researchers in terms of human resource capacity to our departments. And then we have encouraged student exchange, and then towards the establishment of the center that we are looking forward to. And the Cambridge Africa program has also improved my outlook on science that has gone beyond the dye-sensitized solar cells. So we do energy storage and different forms of science that I will not talk to you about. So these are my collaborators that I've worked with in Cambridge, Dr. Tawfique, Hasan, and the rest of the colleagues that helped me. My acknowledgement to the Cambridge Africa program for providing this opportunity, and the University of Ghana, the Caprix team, and of course, my colleagues in the Department of Material Science and Engineering and the Engineering School. Of course, I must say, when I came, we were made members of Wolfson College. So I'm a proud member of Wolfson College now because of Caprix. And then Cambridge Africa program, and we thank Albarada for your support. Thank you very much.
David, that was splendid. Questions?
Up at the back.
How convenient. Thanks. Hi, I'm Josh. I'm a student here. I'm from South Africa. I have a question for you that's not technical. That's not my field of expertise by any means. But I was wondering, so there's some concerns at the moment in the university that, for instance, the Graphene, what's it called, the Cambridge Graphene Center works with arms companies like BAE, Roke, what's it called, Cobham, and so on. So I just wanted to ask, in terms of the kinds of research partnerships that you do, particularly at the University of Ghana, and these processes that you're setting up, beyond just the solar panel stuff, because that's relatively good, I would say, how do you deal with issues of ethics in research, and not just in terms of the process of research itself, but also the products of your research and where that goes to? Thanks.
Well, it depends on which of the collaborators that you are dealing with, and then where you're doing. For instance, if you're doing something for a technology company, then you have to go by their terms. Of course, you have this confidentiality agreements that you have to go through. So usually it becomes slightly a challenge when you have to typically do it mainly for the industry partner. But apart from that, we do not have a lot of ethical issues with, for instance, when we work in lasers and in energy storages, in digital displays. Of course, if you venture into where you're going to do the biosensors, that is where usually you have to go through a lot of these ethical clearance and things like this. So that's basically, yeah. And I'm not too sure about what goes beyond this, especially in the Cambridge Graphene Center, because I cannot speak much about what is going on there, yeah.
Hi, thank you. Tandeka, I'm also a student here, but from South Africa, also a social scientist, so not a scientist at all, but I was wondering if you could maybe speak about solar energy in general as an opportunity for much of rural African spaces, and especially what are the major obstacles to that going forward, and do you think that, because a lot of people suggest that that might be the new hope for people in rural spaces because electrical grid energy is not really getting to them. Do you think that's a viable choice? Do you think that's where it's going, or do you think the obstacles are too big?
I think it is for rural communities where you have, for instance, in medicine, where you have to store different vaccines in freezers, and there are, in Ghana, for instance, there have been deployment of solar panels, what we call the solar grids, then solar farms, to provide electrification for rural communities. And then there are others that have, for instance, in the hospitals, to have a panel that will be able to let you run your freezer. I think it is a very viable choice. The challenge usually is with the storage of the energy. So in most cases, you have the panel that has been installed, but you don't have the battery. But we realize that in other cases, you have batteries, but there is a need beyond the freezer. you find a whole community that will want to charge their cell phones. And during the day, you have people plugging in different equipment and drawing out all the energy. In the night when you really need it, it's not available, right? So it's one of the things that we are proposing in this hub that we are going to do is to look at the energy storage and then how to recycle even the batteries and do some sort of training for the rural communities that we provide. You do the generation, and then you do the storage, and then you do the recycling. What would be the motivation for someone that is far away to bring his or her battery? And what is the weight? Sometimes the weight alone of the battery, the storage, is even deterring for the rural folks to bring it to, say, the urban center for it to be recycled. So it's an area that we are going in, but I think it's a positive way to go for the renewables, especially where they are not connected to the main grids.
Yes, one more.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. My name is Raj Gopal. My question is about the technology of the dye-sensitized solar cell. You mentioned that there's a few different potential applications that you're looking at, but I'm wondering, in the case of the solar panel, do you think that are the dye-sensitized solar cells going to make an impact on photovoltaics for solar energy?
Yes. And then it depends on the generation of the solar cell. So you can look at either first generation, second generation, or third generation solar cell. This is the dye-sensitized solar cell was chosen as one of the simple routes in producing your cell. And then I do that for my students, to do the student training at least to be able to produce cells by themselves. Even if you don't go through this printing technology, you can simply make something that can generate your energy. And with that, the way to go will be to use, for instance, flexible ones, flexible solar cells, or make a couple of panels that could be used for milder applications. Where the demand is higher, then you might go in still for the silicon-based solar cells, which are coming down anyway. The argument initially was that the solar cell, the silicon-based were quite expensive, and if you find alternatives, even though that's coming down. So for basic science purposes, the students are able to do this, and then they are able to go beyond that until the time where we could go beyond the lab and then produce these silicon-based, for instance, by the students themselves. The idea is that we need to train a critical mass of the people to be able to either they produce it or they have the technology, the understanding, so that they can do the repairs. I mean, sometimes like from the question that she asked, a solar panel is not working. Maybe there is just a connection that is not, or is covered in dust. And then you have to bring somebody from somewhere, pay the plane ticket for the person to come, and then find out this is the reason, right? So it's quite important to train the critical mass to be able to handle some of these ones.
Good. Well, we'll call Dave. Thank you very much indeed, David, for that fabulous talk.